So a wetland is an area, it can either be in the lake or it can be on land, where all of the plants that are growing there require water. So it's defined according to the plants that grow. So if you have an area where all the plants are aquatic plants, you have a wetland. When we talk to people on the lake about their concerns around this potential development on the Fraser estate, lots of different issues come up. One of them that really seems to grab most people's heartstrings is the issue of the wetland. And there's a wetland both on the property. There's a whole series of little pockets of wetland that are all interconnected, so it's called a wetland complex. And then there's another wetland in the lake immediately to the east in what's used to be called Clark's Bay. So both these wetlands are connected, and the water that collects in the surface of Fraser property in these pockets drains into the lake in two spots. One is into the Fairy Lake Island wetland that you've heard about. The other is right into a little lagoon on the sort of northwest corner, which is a long inlet into the property. It's very shallow, and it's full of aquatic plants, water-loving plants. And the way the biologists define a wetland is, or the boundary of a wetland, is as you look at the plant species and you move further and further away from the wet area, the species shift into plants that like drier soil. So when you hit full, half of the plants are water loving and half of the plants are dry soil loving, then you say that's the boundary of the wetland. So wetlands extend beyond the water or the mud that you see quite considerably because of the plant species that live around the edges. And so that's why having buffer zones around wetlands are essential in order to be able to protect them. And there's some argument about how big that buffer zone should be. Some of the most recent literature is saying 300 meters from a wetland. If you do anything, you'll disturb the function. The current planning guide, let's say the county official plan, says 120 meters is the distance within which, if you want to do anything, you must show that you're not going to have a negative impact on the wetland. And that's what's so remarkable about this piece of property. 700 acres, 90% of that 700 acres is less than 120 meters from a provincially significant wetland. And so that says if you want to do anything on that property, you're going to have to demonstrate that you're not harming those wetlands. And as you know, there are two issues here. There's the actual function of the wetland in terms of filtering runoff and cleansing the water. And then there's all the animals that depend on being able to go back and forth between the wetland and the dry land as part of their life cycle. And that's one of the reasons you have to have a big buffer, is because you want to maintain the habitat for those. The turtles are a prime example, right? Have come out of the water to lay their eggs on dry land. But there are many other animals that go back and forth between these two environments. So it's a very precious area, very complex, very diversified in terms of the species, both of plant and animal life.